Welcome back to Paperback Ponderings, and it is the end of the month, and so we are going over our reads for February. We're going to tell you the books we read, what we rated them, and a short little summary of each, spoiler free, and our little thoughts on whether we think you would like them too. So
our little thoughts.
And this is an exciting month because Sarah may have cracked her very long reading slump.
Yes, I do think that there might be light at the end of the tunnel for Sari.
It's been a long go for you.
Yeah, this is the first month in like 3 or 4 months that I've read. I mean, all of the books were for the podcast, but like that I've been able to read more than like 2 or 3 books, which has been a tough go. It's been hard to accomplish.
Yeah.
So I'm feeling really optimistic for the future. Maybe March. March is going to be good. I still got to dig myself out of a hole when it comes to my goals for the year. I'm 7 books behind.
Oh,
we'll make it.
You can catch up. I believe in you.
I do believe in me. I just need like maybe a vacation.
Yes.
To like, read. Only reading.
Be uninterrupted.
Yeah. But first on my list is a book that kind of took like the whole ass world by storm, or at least the Canadian world. It is Heated Rivalry by Rachel Reed. If you haven't heard of it, what rock are you living under? No.
No, for real.
But actually, yeah, I feel like even the people who haven't read Heated Rivalry or like seen the show know of the show. And like that it was a book.
My boyfriend and his dad like were aware of it. So
yeah, like my hockey crazed younger cousin, like all he does is consume hockey, knows about it.
Okay,
because his girlfriend was like really into the show.
Yeah, it's been pretty widespread. There was a lot of, even I think for the male sports audience, they had the commercials playing on big games that were happening. So the exposure was there, and yeah.
Oh yeah, the music too, like the music at the hockey games, that like really famous club scene at the show. If you haven't seen the show, have you?
No. Damn,
Kyla. Oh my god, you're the one that's under a rock. No.
I know. At least I know it's happening.
Yeah, you knew it happened. But Heat of Rivalry is currently, so the book is actually the second book of the Game Changers series. You don't need to read all the books in order, but it's always nice if you do. I didn't. I just jumped to this one, which is what most of the show is written off of. Currently, it's sitting on Goodreads at a 4.29 out of 305,000 ratings with 54,000 reviews. So it's still pretty small, which is kind of surprising to me because it's a really easy read. But this story follows hockey rivals Shane Hollander and Ilya Rozanov, who are essentially rookies, or it starts out with them as rookies playing at national level hockey. They are superstars. They've got kind of bright futures ahead of them. And the press and the teams are obviously very competitive. So the press has created this narrative about Shane and Ilya as like antagonistic and rivals, like really heated rivals on opposing teams in the National Hockey League. So they've got bright futures ahead of them, and they are pitted against each other constantly in their games. And they start a secret romance. So this story spans like 10 years of their life, from their rookie year all the way up to like seasoned National Hockey League players. And you get to see them kind of like grow both as individuals, as like famous hockey players, and then of course, their sexuality. So there's a lot of exploration. It's very steamy. It's a male-on-male romance. It's literally from like the second the book starts, there's spice. Like,
oh, really?
I did not expect it to be so quick, but the spice and the kind of attraction between Shane and Ilya is so palpable and like immediate when the book starts that I was a little bit like, how are we going to get through this whole book? Like, it's going to get boring eventually.
Yeah.
But I think the element of having to keep it a secret, because of course, like hockey being a super macho male dominated sport, it would be really controversial if it came out that there were any openly gay players in the NHL.
Yeah.
So there's this element of secrecy and trying to be sneaky about it. So they're like sneaking around after games whenever they're in the same cities and doing all kinds of kinky shit.
Yeah.
And there's jealousy and begrudging deep feelings, and it kind of starts off with casual sex, casual hookups, convenient because they're both in the NHL. So if it were to come out that they were gay, it would be a really big deal. Ilya's also from Russia, so like illegal to be gay there, you know, like lots of really interesting elements that make it feel very taboo, which is why it's so appealing, I think, and why it like stayed so appealing through the whole book.
So are you planning to read, because I know there's a sequel about them already out, and then there's a third one coming out next year. Are you planning to continue reading it?
Yeah, so book 3 of the Game Changers series isn't Ilya and Shane's story. I think book 5 is their story.
Yeah.
And I would want to do audiobook because that's what I did for this one. So I'm just waiting for them through the library. But yeah, I'm planning on listening to all of them. I think that was really entertaining read or listen. I have heard things about like the other couples in this series that just are not as appealing as Shane and Ilya's story, but I do think that I'll probably carry on with it because the audio was pretty entertaining. It was nice to like have something grip you so quickly.
It has seemed like obviously Shane and Ilya are the stars of the whole series, and I have seen a lot of people reading the rest of the series and the other couples and enjoying them, but yeah, it doesn't seem like any of the other ones shine a candle to the tension and whatever is going on in Heated Rivalry. So
yeah, for sure. I definitely think that like there's something particularly appealing about these two because they're on rival hockey teams. It's also based loosely off of the rookie rivalry between Sidney Crosby and Alexander Ovechkin. And
I was
I've
wondering
been, like,
that.
Obsessed with Sidney Crosby. Low key, like, love that man. So yeah, we're a big fan of this story over here for sure.
Nice. Yeah, I would definitely like to read it at some point. I've just been in a very epic fantasy mood since this got popular around Christmas. I just have not been feeling pulled to romances right now, but I'll catch up eventually.
Yeah, you've been super on the fantasy train for sure, which is funny because I feel like fantasy was what killed my reading desire. I feel like I needed a break from fantasy for a minute.
Totally fair. It happens. Like, I feel like the moods, they come and go, and if you push it in one direction that you're not feeling pulled to, that can absolutely cause a slump. So I'm feeling a little bit that way about romantasy. Like the past couple months, I've been feeling pulled to a very plot forward story as opposed to a romance forward story. So
yeah, super fair. Speaking of, what's your next book?
Yes, so on the subject of fantasy, my first book of February was Mistborn by Brandon Sanderson. This one is largely considered to be one of the most epic fantasies of all time. Like, this is one of those ones you hear people talking about all the time. People who don't read a whole lot of fantasy are like, oh, but Mistborn. It's Mistborn, I feel like, is the ACOTAR of the non-romantasy fantasy.
Yeah, I was gonna say something a little more controversial. Like,
were you gonna say boy fantasy?
Yeah.
I was literally trying to find another way to say it that was not that.
Yeah, I do feel though like SJM is like the girly fantasy club, and then like Sanderson is like the boy fantasy club.
Definitely. Yeah.
And we can switch back and forth. It's not to say that boys aren't allowed to read SJM and we're not allowed to read Sanderson, but I think there's an archetype there.
There definitely is. Yes, there definitely is. I think if you ask some random guy on the street if you met him and he said, oh, I like fantasy, chances are he's talking about Brandon Sanderson and not Sarah J. Maas. But anyways, 100%. So this one was a long time coming. This is one of those ones that's been on the radar forever, and I'd have never gotten around to. Some of my friends were reading it, so I hopped on board because I knew I needed something to push me to do it. So Mistborn currently has a 4.49 out of 994,000 ratings on Goodreads. It's coming up on that 1 million mark, which good for him. I know he just announced screenplay. I don't know if it's a TV series or a movie. I can't remember, but that is in the works. But if you're not familiar with Mistborn, it is the first in a series. Well, okay, it's the first in a series. You have the original trilogy, and then you have a second generation trilogy. But the premise,
classic.
yeah. But the premise is basically it is set in a barren world where ash falls from the sky, and an immortal man known as the Lord Ruler has reigned with absolute power for 1,000 years, keeping the Ska people slaved and living in fear. In this world, some people have the power of allomancy, meaning that they can pull power from one of the 10 types of metals to perform a different type of power. So each metal of the 10 has a different ability associated with it, and they usually have little vials that have trace metals in them, and they'll just toss a vial back and be able to draw on those metals. So it's not like, I can bend steel as much. It's different types of powers, which I thought was cool. More rarely though. So allomancy is, some people have it, some people don't. But even more rarely, there are people who are known as Mistborn, and these people can pull power from all 10 of the metals as opposed to just one of them. So the story follows a 16-year-old orphan girl named Vin, who is living and working with a criminal thieving crew when she's approached by a mysterious and charismatic man named Kelsier. Kelsier tells her that she is a Mistborn like him. He recognized her powers by just kind of observing the other people in the criminal underground. So she didn't even know that she had powers really, but he could tell. And so now he wants to recruit her to his cause. So Kelsier is a half Ska and the leader of a group of allomancers in the criminal underworld, and he is assembling a crew of the most talented and loyal allomancers that he can find for the ultimate plan of taking down the Lord Ruler and destroying his empire forever, which is a lofty goal. So the story follows Vin as she joins this crew and learns more about her powers and has to also start learning to trust the people around her, because this is something she was never able to do in her original thieving crew. And you get Vin point of views and Kelsier point of views, so it goes back and forth between them as they kind of just plan this mega rebellion.
Interesting. It's kind of like a political heist kind of thing going on.
Yes, definitely. So I gave this book, in the end, I gave it 4 stars, but this was a hard 3-star for like 80% of the book. Like, it was sitting so hard at a 3-star for me because it kept having promise, it kept intriguing me, and then the intrigue would die and it would be boring. And then it would get intriguing and then it would be boring again. And so I was like, okay, this book is going to be a 3-star, but so many people talk about the ending of this book. And I had one friend that I was reading it with, and she was in the same boat as me, that she felt it was a 3-star book. And then she got to the end and was like 5 stars to the book.
Oh, wow.
So I was like, I was just really curious going into the end about what could possibly make it go from a 3 to a 5, because that's a big jump.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I will confirm the ending was pretty nuts. Like there was a lot that happened that was very exciting, and it did make me bump my rating up to a 4 as opposed to a 3. But the problems remain for me. Basically, my problems with the story were, 1, this Lord Ruler, that the whole plot of the book is to overthrow the Lord Ruler, and they're always talking about how horrible the Lord Ruler is. You don't meet the Lord Ruler. You don't even see him.
I see. Mm-hmm.
He's just this concept. Like, the society is bad, yes, but the Lord Ruler, there's nothing to make me emotionally invested in overthrowing this man.
Yeah.
So that was problem number 1. And then also I found none of the people in this thieving crew who are working to overthrow the system, like they're doing it on behalf of the Ska people. And all of them have at least partial Ska blood, but none of them were ever part of these slave groups. Like, all of them are living in the criminal underground, which means they're separate. Like, they're kind of living outside of the law when you live in the criminal underground. So we didn't have a character who had come from that and was fighting to change it, to really increase the emotional investment in the overthrow plot.
Interesting. Yeah. It sounds like you didn't really identify or like have feelings about anyone. In a strong way. Like there wasn't like a like very convincing person to kind of like hold to or like find emotional investment in.
And like I will say, Vin as a character, I did really like her actually as a character. And Kelsier as well. Like he's a pretty iconic character. He's very charismatic, very likable. Vin with her, I always like kind of that street orphan, tough girl kind of vibe. And Vin was very much that. So the two of them I did like. But the whole crew around them were very much side characters. Like I felt like we didn't really know them very well. They were just kind of in the background, which again didn't make me care that much, and it was slow. It felt like a second book and it was a first book.
Yeah, I do feel like Sanderson has very meandery writing to the point of rambly sometimes. Or am I like, is that not really true?
I agree. And I saw somebody today, actually a post online that said his writing style is very utilitarian. So there's nothing like beautiful or lyrical about the prose itself to draw you in. He also likes to leave things out and like not give you answers and then give them later, but like let you just be confused for the whole book about certain things.
It's giving Rebecca Yarros.
Yes. But anyways, so that was kind of my perception of Mistborn. In the end, I did like it and I liked things about it. I just did struggle a little bit with the pace and intrigue of the book.
For the like ending, since it was so epic, like what's a comparative finale? Like, are we talking Crescent City level ending or it's Forbidden Alchemy ending? You know, like what kind of ending? What's comparable to the feelings or the vibes?
It's kind of unique. Okay. That's the thing. That's kind of, I think, the thing. There's something very unexpected that happens.
Kind of like a Luke, I am your father or moment or like
it's I don't really have anything to compare it to. I wouldn't say it's like Crescent City because the Crescent City ending was just like absolute chaos, fires everywhere, and like just every possible explosion that could be happening was exploding. In this one, it was like this thing happens and I've never seen something like this happen before in a book. So that was pretty unexpected and
I'm intrigued now. I must say I am a little intrigued.
Yeah, it's like, so if you were asking me if I recommend this book, I would say not to everybody, because if you can't handle a slow build, if that's not your type of story, then this might be a hard one to get through. But if you are curious about the series being such an iconic series, give it a go. Push through till the end, because there were multiple moments. Like, it doesn't really get interesting, honestly. I was not hooked until 75%. Wow. Which is a long time to wait. It's not that long of a book, but there were multiple moments throughout the book where I thought I could DNF this and I wouldn't be fazed. Like I wouldn't really care that much. So if you're reading it and you're thinking that, but you're curious about the end, push through. It's an end worth reading. There's a lot of things that happen, a lot of things that are revealed, a lot of setup for the next book. Although I have heard that the next book is very much a book too. So I don't know.
All right. Noted. Maybe not for Sari, who's recovering from a reading slump. But
no. But one day.
Yeah, I
would not
Sarah,
recommend
please
it.
don't read this.
Not right now. It's not the time. Yeah.
Interesting.
What was your next one?
So my next book, I'm going to say it, it's another kind of king of the boy fantasy world. My next book was Red Rising by Pierce Brown. Kyla and I both read this. So if you are interested in like unfiltered, all of our thoughts and reactions about Red Rising, head on over to that episode. For anyone who's kind of considering reading it, but curious what it's about and wants to know kind of like TLDR version of of this book. Red Rising is sitting at a 4.27 out of 810,000 rating. So pretty high as well, up there with Sanderson for sure. It was actually the winner of the reader's favorite debut for Goodreads authors in 2014. So it's an older book. And it was nominated for favorite YA fantasy and science fiction. Kyla and I have a lot of opinions about whether this book should be a YA. But you can head on over to the other episode to hear about them. For anyone who is curious about Red Rising or like hasn't really heard about it, Red Rising is a sci-fi series that follows 16-year-old Darrow, who is a red hell driver living on Mars. And he is a part of a community who is mining for resources on Mars to set up a world to kind of save humanity. So on Earth, they need to expand. And his community, the Reds, were sent to Mars to mine to get the planet ready for habitation. And in the story, we find out that this has all been a lie. Darrow and his fellows and his parents and his family, all his loved ones, are actually really enslaved, and we have colonized Mars hundreds of years ago. This is the lie that they're all told to continue working and mining for the resources to sustain the luxurious and elite life of the gold above the surface. So Darrow, after a series of events, is very indignant about this, very righteous and angry, and he is given the opportunity to essentially take his payback. So he is put into a simulation with all of the golds of society, and he gets to kind of learn about what life looks like for the other half while acting out his revenge plot.
And what a plot it is.
And what a plot it is. That was really hard not to give spoilers on. But I would say, and Kyla and I have talked about this, but I would almost describe this story as like Lord of the Flies meets Roman gladiators meets Hunger Games / Divergent era dystopian vibes.
Yeah. And a lot of people say Game of Thrones too, I think, because of the different house politics. There's a lot of meaning related to the house you're born into and loyalty to houses and stuff. So I can see that as well a bit.
Yeah, I can see that too. But to me, that's kind of encompassed in like the Roman kind of gladiator vibe, I guess. Like in ancient Greek times, there were famous houses and the folks that were kind of like the elite or the ruling class. And usually it was hereditary, right? So you're kind of like born into what you're born into, and you kind of navigate within that inherited scope that you get as someone born wherever you're born in this society. So I thought it was really cool. It had so many surprising elements, probably because I didn't know what it was about when I started it.
Well, you know what? I knew what it was about, and I was still very surprised many times. So
Yeah. I was really surprised at how closely it felt like Lord of the Flies. In the simulation. Essentially, they have to like establish society and rule and order and law, and they navigate kind of some crazy shit. Darrow is like a really enticing protagonist. I do find like in the beginning he comes across as a bit cocky, but by the end you're like really on Darrow, like Team Darrow for sure.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
You kind of love him. You love him, but like it's all in his mind. Like you love his brain and the way his brain works. Like he's not actually that impressive. I think anyways, like
yeah, it's something about the way he thinks and the way he acts. Like he is just a person making mistakes and learning as well, but there's something just very compelling about him.
Yeah, and he has like a really like solid understanding of human behavior, I guess, which is kind of interesting and fascinating to see play out in the simulation. It's not a simulation, like they're real people, like it's a real situation that they're in. It's not like all in VR or whatever, but in this game that he's kind of thrust into, you get to see quite a bit of the inner workings of his mind and the way that he's able to anticipate the behavior of others and how he uses that to his advantage. To me is like so interesting.
Yes, very interesting.
Yeah, so I gave this one a 5-star. I literally can't stop thinking about it. I was thinking yesterday as I was vacuuming the house, I was like, oh gosh, I just want to like read that again for the first time. Like this might be my new, you know, that like what book would you read for the first time again?
This one?
It would be this one. It might even have like knocked Throne of Glass out of the window.
Wow, that's a big statement.
I know.
At least you have 6 books ahead of you.
Yes.
Lots of content.
Very excited for that. It's almost like I have to force myself not to go for the next book.
Yes, I've been feeling that way for about a week now. I'm days away from diving into Golden Sun and cannot wait.
Really? You're gonna get into it soon?
As soon as I finish my current physical book, then yes.
Nice.
Yeah.
What's next for you?
My next one for February was The Ragpicker King by Cassandra Clare. So this one is the sequel to Swordcatcher, which was Cassandra Clare's first adult book outside of the Shadowhunters series, and it was also a nominee for Reader's Favorite Fantasy in 2023. So The Ragpicker King has been out for probably almost a year now, the sequel, and it currently has a 4.38 out of 21,000 ratings on Goodreads. And if you are not following the Cassandra Clare news and lore, this one, Swordcatcher, is a castle fantasy. It's set in the city-state of Castellane and follows Kell, who's an orphan who was plucked from his life to become the body double, or the sword catcher, of the young prince Connor Aurelian. So raised alongside him and trained in everything that Connor was trained in, from the intelligence stuff to the physical training. Kell and Connor are as close as brothers, but Kell has always known that it's his destiny to die for Connor someday. So that kind of puts
a damper on things.
So aside from Kell and Connor, the story also follows a girl named Lynn, who is part of a small walled community within the city, whose residents are the only remaining people who possess magic in this world. And as a physician, Lynn is permitted beyond the community walls to treat her patients, but despite her skill, she is unable to heal her dying best friend without access to forbidden knowledge. And after a failed assassination attempt brings Kell and Lynn together, they're both swept into the city's criminal underworld, which is run by a man known as the Ragpicker King, who offers both of them what they want most. But as they're drawn into this underground world of shadows and intrigue and secrets, they discover a conspiracy of corruption within the city among the nobles of the castle and beyond. So that's what book 1 is about. The one I read, I actually listened to the audiobook for The Ragpicker King because it was just not at the top of my TBR. So I thought, why not give it a listen? I will say regarding the audiobook, good narrators, but I hate when this happens, when they have a female and a male narrator, but when it's the one's perspective, they don't have the other one do the voices.
I see. Yeah.
So like in Lynn's perspective, it's the Lynn narrator who's doing Connor's voice, which was not the vibe. And then you would get Connor's voice from the male narrator when it's Kell's perspective. And I was like, oh, why can't we just have this all the time?
Well, it'd be so much harder to record, I think.
Yeah, but they're doing it all the time now. There's so many audiobooks that have the back and forth. And it's just like, if it's going to improve the quality of the reading experience or the listening experience for the readers, do it, please.
Do this always. What did you end up giving the Ragpicker King?
So I gave it 3.75.
Oh my gosh, Kyla.
It was almost a 4, but not quite. It was really fun to be back in the world. I thought literally within the first chapter, I was like, oh yeah, I remember now why I enjoyed the first book, why I am excited to be back here. Like, it is just a fun world. It's fun characters. So overall, it was a pleasant experience. I enjoyed listening to it. I will say it felt like maybe not as much was happening in this book. It was a little bit slower. There was less going on.
Like a bridge book? Like setting up for something more?
Definitely setting up for some stuff. There just wasn't a ton of action. And Lynn's storyline in particular, without spoilers, at the end of the first book, she finds herself in a situation that you're kind of like, oh crap, like how is she gonna get out of this situation?
Where have we found ourselves?
Yeah. And then nothing really comes of that storyline for the entire book too. She's just kind of stressed about it, and she's like, oh, what am I gonna do when I have to deal with this? And something could have come of it. Like, it just felt like it was dragged out with nothing happening for no reason. So I was a bit bored with Lynn's side of things.
Interesting, because I feel like book 1 ended on a pretty intense snitchiation for Lynn.
Yes, yeah. So kind of disappointing. But I mean, like, I had fun listening to it. It was an enjoyable listen, but it was a little slow. But it had some exciting things happen at the end. So I'll definitely still tune in for the third book.
Yeah, I was excited to get back into this world. A little bit disappointing maybe that like Lynn's story was not as entertaining, but I also was kind of struggling with Lynn at the end of Swordcatcher as well. Like, I was intrigued by her story, but I wasn't intrigued by her.
Yeah.
She was kind of annoying me a little.
I can see that, yeah.
You know?
Yeah. She's not my favorite.
What I am intrigued by is like the dynamics between Lynn, Connor, and Cal.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, there's some interesting stuff that goes on with that dynamic.
Does it feel more adult than the Swordcatcher felt? Because the Swordcatcher didn't really feel very adult.
So this is actually something I was going to say. No, it didn't. And like, in particular, I'm thinking about the Ragpicker King himself and his little band of teenagers, basically. Like, he's the king of the city. He's the king of the underworld of the city. And his inner circle are a bunch of like bantery teenagers, it seems like. Like, maybe they're older, maybe they're in their 20s, but they're giving teenager energy. It's giving the Institute in the Shadowhunters, where you have like the Institute master guy and then all the little teenagers who go out and do the missions and stuff for them.
Moonlighting as adults with knives.
Yeah. So it was giving YA.
Yeah.
Like, yes, there are some slightly more graphic things in the series, but overall, in terms of relationships and stuff, it felt YA still.
And behavior is kind of feeling YA.
Yeah. I don't think Kel feels like a YA character. Like, Kel feels a little bit older to me, but overall the tone of the story didn't feel very different from how her Shadowhunters books felt.
Interesting. I am intrigued. Will continue to read, but definitely intrigued.
Yeah. What was your next one?
So my next book was Brimstone. Finally got around to finishing it, by Callie Hart. For anyone who is interested in Brimstone, curious how it's landing, it's currently at a 4.08 out of 261,000 ratings. And it is the second book in the Fate and Alchemy series. So the first one is Quicksilver. You may have heard of it. It was originally self-published, but it kind of took off. So it's been kind of scooped up for trad. And we have feelings about that, but this is the second book. If you're curious about Quicksilver and haven't read it yet, Quicksilver follows Saris Fane, who is a mortal girl living in the poorest ward of a desert city, where she is limited to a ration of 4 ounces of water a day. So incredibly, incredibly poor and basically doing what she can to survive. So in her desperation to support herself and her younger brother, she ends up stealing a piece of gold armor from a city guard so that she can boil it down and sell it. However, as she is doing so, she's caught and she's actually taken to the palace to be punished by the queen. And when she actually gets there, she accidentally opens up a Quicksilver portal to the Fey realm, and none other than the Fey warrior Kingfisher steps through, pulling her back with him to the Fey realm. So Saris thought she was going to die, and then she ends up in the Fey realm. Oopsie daisy. And with a crazy man, with a crazy hot man.
Crazy hot and also a little crazy.
Also, yeah, crazy hot and a little cray-cray. We love Kingfisher, though. In the Fey realm, Saris meets the king, who suspects that Saris is one of the last remaining alchemists alive due to her ability to open the Quicksilver portal. So this portal hadn't been open in a millennia or decades or hundreds of years. I don't know, but a really fucking long time. And that's odd because nobody's been able to open. So they deduce that Saris is probably an alchemist. And the king wants to use Saris to reopen the portal. However, Kingfisher has other plans and ends up tricking Saris into binding herself to him in a bargain. Kingfisher wants to use Saris to create talismans for his army, who are currently at war with a neighboring kingdom, and they are losing that war. So while she attempts to fulfill her bargain to Kingfisher, she gets swept into the world of war, politics, and vampire fae rivalries. There's a lot of stuff going down for Saris right now in Quicksilver. Brimstone is the second book in that series. We're going in an interesting direction. Don't know how I feel about it. I'm along for the ride, you know. We're not mad about this second book, but we have some questions about where it's going.
Yeah.
Yeah. Solid 4-star read for me. I enjoyed it. It was nice being back. I love Kingfisher. He's like the best new shadow daddy that I've had exposure to in a while. I do feel like he's like the only shadow daddy on the market for me right now. If I'm being honest, I can't think of another one.
No, I know. I've been kind of noticing that a lot of the shadow daddies and just male leads in romantasy lately feel kind of cookie cutter. There's nothing that really makes them stand out from their shadow daddy peers. So, yeah, Kingfisher is a standout one though.
He's a standout. Not as morally gray as you would expect though.
No.
Like, Kingfisher really comes across in Quicksilver as like a crazy psycho. Like everyone's afraid of him. He does questionable things. Kingfisher of the Adjin Gate is like a legend and a demon monster.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Then you get to know him and you're like, this is a goddamn golden retriever.
Yes. He is not as crazy as he seems, which is kind of disappointing because it was kind of fun when he was more crazy, but
yeah, I enjoyed it. I was a big fan of Crazy Kingfisher, actually.
But good Kingfisher or like normal Kingfisher is also good.
Yeah.
We still like him.
Yeah. And we do get a really fun side character in Carrion Swift, who is like the comedic relief of both books. He's really important in the first book, kind of, but more so in the second book. Like he's really kind of becoming integral to the plot in a way that he like maybe wasn't before. He was just like fun to have around, but now he's like important.
Yeah.
So that's fun. It wasn't the best book of February, but I'm not going to be mad about it.
Good time.
Yeah. How about you? What's next?
Next up for me is Firebird by Juliet Cross. So this one has a 3.69 out of 14,000 ratings on Goodreads. And this is a fantasy book set in a world inspired by ancient Rome, but if all of the noble-blooded Romans were dragon shifters. So immediately fun concept. And the story follows Julian, who is a general in the Roman army. He's known as the cold-hearted conqueror. He's also the nephew to the emperor. But after one particular battle, he's just won, his army are celebrating. He happens to spot a Dacian woman from the defeated enemy's side being held captive by one of his men, and kind of about to be harmed by one of his men. And he actually recognizes her from a night a few years prior where he watched her dance on stage and was captivated by her beauty. So instinctively, when he sees her about to be harmed by one of his men, he shifts into dragon form and flies her away to his home, where by Roman law she becomes his slave.
Oh Oh my.
So this is kind of a captor-captive romance, but she remembers him too from that night a couple years ago, and she still has the pendant that he gave her that night. And so even though she should be afraid, like she's in this unpleasant situation where she's been taken as a slave, she doesn't know how he's going to treat her and what's going to come of her and her life, she can't help but feel drawn to him. So
intriguing.
I had a lot of fun with this one, actually. So this one is a romance forward romantasy. I will put that out there. The plot is more background. Like, there is a plot for sure, but it is more about the romance, I find. It's also not overly complex. Like, there's no complicated magic system to learn. Since it's based on the Roman Empire, it's very easy to understand the world right off the hop. So if you're looking for a fantasy or a romantasy book that is not going to break your brain and you can just kind of slide in and have a fun time binge reading it, this is definitely a good one. I was able to binge read it, found it very bingeable. I liked the couple. I liked the male main character. He was pretty much what I would have wanted from this male main character. And I liked her, and yeah, it was a fun time.
Okay. I'm looking forward to reading it.
Can confirm you'll be able to speed through this one.
We love a good speedy book.
Yes, we do. And it does have some darker themes. I saw it like tagged as dark romance. I wouldn't tag it as dark romance personally. It just has some darker elements happening around. Like, obviously she's being held captive, and the Roman Empire as a society, we see some debauchery happening.
Wasn't the best in terms of human rights.
Yes. But there is like a good found family in it among kind of the slaves that she's around, and there's a bit of a plot and there's some good spice. So yeah, this is also
spice forward book.
Yeah, sometimes that's what you need. This one is also, it's worth noting, this is a series of standalones. So the plot kind of is overarching for the rest of the series, but each book follows a new couple. So be prepared for that going in, that this is a one and done for this couple.
Okay, noted. Noted in my brain bank.
What was your next read?
So my next read, final read of February, was actually an advanced reader's copy of How to Write a Love Story by Catherine Walsh. This book will be coming out March 10th, so very, very soon. And the fine folks at Penguin sent Kyla and I a copy. This was a really fun book to read. This one follows our protagonist, Kira Sheridan, whose famous father has just died, leaving behind the outline for the final book in his best-selling fantasy series for her to finish writing. So she's tasked with a pretty difficult task, which is finishing an epic fantasy series in the wake of her father's death. With millions, like the literal millions of fans who all have opinions about what should happen and whether the final book should even be written by someone else at all, Kira's got a pretty bad case of writer's block. So her father's publisher sends their hotshot young editor, Sam Avery, who also happens to be a major fan of the book series, to Ireland to help Kira work through her writer's block and finish the story. Only when Sam gets to Ireland, he's frustrated to find out that she has not written a single thing yet, besides a few early chapters, early iterations of the beginning of the book. Not only that, but she also seems set on avoiding him and making their working relationship harder than it needs to be. So she's like, ooh, random American in a small town in Ireland, I'm going to avoid that guy because I know he's here for me. However, the more time they spend together, the more the book unfolds, the more they start to find their way, and the more those lines between editor and author start to blur. So it gets a little romantic, a little bit spicy up in here.
Yes, it does.
Yeah, it was a super fun book to read. I really enjoyed it. I thought that it was like a really fun twist for us because we love a fantasy series, and this still had like little pieces of fantasy in it. Like, could you imagine an epic fantasy being finished by someone other than the author?
Yeah. Well, that's actually, did you know that Brandon Sanderson did that for the Wheel of Time series for Robert Jordan?
I had heard something like this, yes, but I don't know the details. What happened?
I think just that he died and they had Brandon Sanderson finish it. So they have like a couple books at the end of the series that say Robert Jordan, Brandon Sanderson on them. Yeah, and he has talked a little bit about like finishing that series. And I don't know much beyond that, but I just think it's interesting to see it in real life and to see it in the book. And
I know, it's almost like it is, you can kind of understand and empathize with the fans of this fantasy series, because the idea of like anyone other than the author finishing a series that's like so epic and important to people does feel impossible.
Yeah.
It does feel awful. Like, imagine SJM never got to finish ACOTAR / Crescent City.
Yeah.
Or we never got Kingdom of Ash. Oh my God.
Yeah, that would be absolutely brutal. And then to have the publisher say, this other person's going to write it, and you want to trust that they can do a good job, but you're wary, and you're always going to have it in the back of your mind that this wasn't from the original author. So is it what they wanted?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And imagine the burden. Like, I through this whole book, I had such empathy for Kira, because I was like, this has to be impossible. It's not like it's like a coworker and you're finishing a coworker's work. Like, this is her father's legacy. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of like complicated emotions that got stirred up. Kira was a really interesting like protagonist.
Yes.
Read about. Like, it was a really solid book.
Yeah, I think if you are the type of person who likes to read about the writing process, and you like to read about books where people are writing books and working through writer's block and stuff, I always love those stories, and this was no different. Really enjoyed it. It was just really nice to see her work through it, and Sam as a helper to her was just a really great partner. Like, he was a great character as well. The story had really great side characters and background banter and stuff going on to relieve the tension. So very much rom-com moments, and yeah,
a really solid book. And also very excited because we actually got to sit down with Catherine and talk about this story. So if you're curious about it, if you're looking to read it, it's kind of tagged or dubbed like Leap Year meets Book Lovers. Really fun book. And if you want to learn more about the book, we have a completely spoiler-free interview coming to the podcast soon.
Very excited for that.
Yeah, it was such a fun time. So lovely to sit down with Catherine, learn a little bit more about her process and how this story came to be.
Yes, so very excited for you guys to see that interview with Catherine Walsh coming up soon in just a couple weeks, I believe. But that's all for now for our February wrap and all the books we read and what we thought on them. If you have read any of these, reach out to us on Instagram at paperback.ponderings. We want to know your thoughts. I want to know, are you team Brandon Sanderson or are you team not so much? Yes. Either way, we want to know. All love to the Brandon Sanderson fans, by the way.
Yeah, no hate. Don't come.
No hate. No hate. And we will see you next week.